Have you ever picked up a game at launch only to find it riddled with bugs, missing features, or just not living up to the hype? It's a disheartening experience many gamers know all too well. The excitement leading up to release, the pre-order bonuses, the endless trailers promising an unforgettable adventure, only for everything to come crashing down the moment you press start. It's enough to make any gamer feel burned. But in the ever-evolving world of gaming, a bad launch isn't always a death sentence. Some of the most beloved titles today started as disastrous disappointments, only to rise from the ashes thanks to dedicated developers, massive overhauls, and relentless patches. Today we're diving into 5 games that had some of the worst launches in gaming history, yet through sheer perseverance, they turned their fortunes around. Welcome to nerdsection.com. Imagine a universe teeming with 18 quintillion planets, each waiting to be explored, every one of them procedurally generated with its own unique landscapes, wildlife, and mysteries. That was the tantalizing promise of No Man's Sky, a game that seemed almost too good to be true. And well, at launch, it was. When players finally got their hands on the game in 2016, they discovered a universe that, while vast, felt eerily empty. The massive space battles, multiplayer interactions, and deep planetary ecosystems that had been teased? Nowhere to be found. Instead, players were met with repetitive landscapes, shallow survival mechanics, and an overwhelming sense of loneliness. The backlash was swift and brutal, with accusations of false advertising and broken promises flooding gaming forums. But instead of abandoning ship, developer Hello Games embarked on a years-long mission to redeem themselves. Through a steady stream of free updates, they introduced base building, true multiplayer, deep space exploration, and far richer planetary diversity. Today, No Man's Sky is an entirely different experience, one that finally lives up to its grand ambition, proving that sometimes second chances are worth the wait. Neon-lit streets, cybernetic enhancements, and a sprawling open world filled with intrigue, Cyberpunk 2077 was set to be the definitive sci-fi RPG, with years of hype leading up to its 2020 release. Instead, it arrived with a resounding thud, especially for those playing on last-gen consoles. What should have been a groundbreaking experience was instead riddled with game-breaking bugs, performance issues, and an unsettling amount of missing content. Characters would T-pose through the streets, cars would launch into the sky, and mission-critical NPCs would sometimes just disappear. The backlash was so severe that Sony took the unprecedented step of pulling the game from the PlayStation Store, while CD Projekt Red scrambled to issue refunds. It was a disaster on a scale rarely seen in gaming, but CDPR wasn't about to let their magnum opus die a premature death. Over the next few years, they released a steady stream of patches, improving performance, fixing glitches, and enhancing the overall experience. The release of the Phantom Liberty expansion, coupled with the massive 2.0 update, finally turned Cyberpunk 2077 into the immersive RPG it was always meant to be. While the wounds of its launch will never fully heal, its redemption arc is one for the history books. There are bad launches, and then there's Final Fantasy XIV's original 2010 release, a disaster so catastrophic that Square Enix didn't just patch the game, they nuked it from orbit and started over. At launch, Final Fantasy XIV was plagued by performance issues, a confusing interface, clunky combat mechanics, and a world that felt bizarrely lifeless for a Final Fantasy title. Players were frustrated by its convoluted quest system, broken economy, and an overall lack of engaging content. The backlash wasn't just bad, it was industry shaking. Square Enix took the unprecedented step of issuing a public apology, admitting that the game was a failure. But instead of walking away, they did something almost unheard of in gaming. They rebuilt the entire game from scratch. The result? Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, a 2013 relaunch that completely overhauled everything from the UI to the story, turning it into one of the greatest MMORPGs of all time. Today, Final Fantasy XIV boasts millions of players, epic expansions, and a deep emotional story that has captivated gamers worldwide. What was once an embarrassment is now a shining example of how to do an MMO right if you're willing to put in the work. The Battlefield franchise has always been known for its massive scale warfare, destructible environments, and intense multiplayer battles. But when Battlefield 4 launched in 2013, players found themselves fighting a very different battle, one against the game's servers, crashes, and never-ending bugs. Matches would disconnect at random, hit detection felt completely broken, and the dreaded rubber banding issue made movement feel laggy and inconsistent. The launch was so unstable that it sparked lawsuits over EA's alleged misrepresentation of the game's state. At the time, it seemed like Battlefield 4 was destined for the scrap heap, but instead of abandoning the game and moving on to the next installment, DICE put in the effort to fix it. Over the course of several months, they released a series of patches that addressed server stability, netcode issues, and game performance. The improvements didn't just bring the game up to standard, they elevated it to one of the best shooters in the franchise. Even years after its launch, Battlefield 4 remains a fan favorite, with many players still considering it the gold standard for modern military shooters. When Fallout 76 was announced, fans were cautiously optimistic. A multiplayer Fallout experience set in the irradiated wastelands of West Virginia, it had potential. But when it launched in 2018, that potential was buried beneath a mountain of technical issues, lackluster content, and an overall sense that something was missing. NPCs, a core part of what makes Fallout's world so immersive, were completely absent, making the game feel eerily lifeless. Bugs ran rampant, with enemies glitching through walls, players falling through the map, and servers crashing without warning. The game quickly became a punchline, with Bethesda facing some of the worst criticism in its history. But much like the other games on this list, Fallout 76 refused to be left for dead through a series of major updates, including the Wastelanders expansion that finally introduced NPCs and meaningful quests. Bethesda transformed Fallout 76 into a genuinely engaging multiplayer RPG. While it may never fully escape the shadow of its disastrous launch, it has carved out a dedicated player base and proven that even the most broken games can be fixed with enough time and effort. These stories serve as a reminder that in gaming, a bad launch doesn't always mean game over. While some titles never recover from their initial stumbles, others manage to turn things around through relentless updates, community engagement, and sheer determination. No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy XIV, Battlefield 4, and Fallout 76 all stand as proof that with enough effort, even the most broken game can be reborn into something truly great. So next time you see a game launch in a sorry state, don't write it off just yet, because sometimes the best games are the ones that refuse to give up. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more gaming content. And if you're looking for more action-packed recommendations, check out our other video on the best action games of 2025. You won't want to miss it. Until next time, happy gaming!